three dimensions away from the Wolfman being called Wolves in the Woods. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Wolfman, released in 2025. Wolfman was directed by Lee Winnell, who directed The Invisible Man, and he also wrote the Saw movies with James Wan, and he also played Adam in that movie, and as well as he wrote Dead Silence, Death Sentence, and Insidious Chapter 1, 2, and 3, where he directed actually 3. And he directed the movie Upgrade, which is very underrated. Lee Winnell written this movie with Corbett Tuck, who is his wife in real life, and the movie stars Christopher Abbott, Julia Gardner, and Sam Yeager. The movie is essentially a reboot of the Wolfman movie, the Lon Chaney Wolfman movie from the 1930s. The movie is essentially that movie that came out in the 30s, but a reboot of that movie where this one is a modern day retelling where the movie is about father, daughter, and his wife go up into the cabin in the woods that a farmhouse kind of that their father left, and the father went missing, and so he's been declared dead. So of course they get like the deed to the place and everything, and he's gonna take his family up there. And of course he runs into an old friend who was who he grew up with, and then of course a wolf attacks them, and of course they're trapped, and the husband who gets bit, they're trapped in the house, and they're trying to kill the wolf man that's trying to kill them while the husband is transforming into a wolf. I A lot of people hate this movie. I don't hate this movie. I actually, here's the funny thing. I wasn't going to see this movie this weekend. I was going to take, it was a long story short, we were going to go see the Wild Robot. So I had to, it was my nieces and nephew. Me, my uncle, my nieces and nephews were going to go and watch a kid's movie. But then, the movie, we got there too late and stuff. And so basically they only had one showing left. And so we got there too late. And so we asked them, what do y'all want to say now? Wolfman. So we went and saw Wolfman. Well, they somewhat liked it. They thought it was fine. I thought it was okay. Like, I was like, you know what? I feel like the only thing, my biggest issue with the movie is it feels rushed. Like, it feels like we should build up to them being in this movie. Rather than it just feels like they're going from A, B, C, and D. When it should just be like, hey, look, let's, take our time, I hate when movies do that. I hate when movies start from the beginning, and then, 20 minutes later, you're already in the middle of the movie. I hate that more than anything. I like when a movie takes its time and builds up. For instance, there is nothing wrong with them being a cabin in the woods movie that goes that doesn't that goes in full throttle. But but it takes its time. Like for instance, Evil Dead. Evil Dead's a movie that doesn't waste time. The 2013 remake does not waste time, but it builds it up to where every scene that plays out, it feels like okay, this is naturally progressive. It doesn't feel like okay, you get there, the junkie's in the woods and everything, and the next thing you know, she's possessed. It doesn't start that way. It builds it up to where you get there. I think really that is my biggest issue with this movie is, okay, you go from a father-daughter story to where 20 minutes later, they're already in the woods. The dad's already bit, they're already in the cabin. I'm like, this feels this feels just too, they're all is wasted, because it's and originally this movie was supposed to be different. Originally Ryan Gosling was going to play the Christopher Abbott role. Christopher Abbott was not going to play this role. Originally, Ryan Gosling, who also was a producer on this movie, was going to star in the movie as the Wolfman. But what happened was, I guess him and Lee Winnell, did not, because originally Lee Winnell was going to write and direct this movie after The Invisible Man. But then he left the project. Lee Winnell left the project originally. He left it, and Ryan Gosling got the Places Beyond the Pines director, who he worked with in that movie, to come. And apparently, I don't know if this was the original story that was going to be, and then Ryan Gosling had a different idea for the story, or if the original idea that Lee Winnell pitched, and then Lee Winnell, when he came back, just pitched a new version. I don't know, but I know one of the pitches that was thrown around was, what if he was a junkie? And then he goes into this farmhouse, and then of course, they think he's just withdrawals, and he turns into, I guess because maybe that this movie would have been too similar to Evil Dead 2013. I guess maybe that's why they changed it. And I guess they probably couldn't, I guess maybe that's my guess. I mean, maybe they had a different idea and it was just been too expensive. Who knows? Maybe it was hey, maybe Ryan Gosling's look, I got this really good story, but it's going to be $30 million. And they're like, we're not paying $30 million for that movie now. And Lee Winnell's I can do it for 10. And so they're like, do it. Let's do it. And I mean, look, this movie, I don't hate it. I don't. You know, by the way, it's not 10 million. It's like the movie cost 20 to make, but still. Like I just think this movie, the only thing it just feels rushed. And honestly, I was excited because I'm like, I love The Invisible Man. I think that is one of the best remakes out of an adaptation ever for a Universal monster product. I honestly was so disappointed because I'm like, this is so a good eye concept, and I feel like a lot of people. I like the 2010 film, the 2010 Wolfman remake, starring Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. I like that movie a lot. I still don't think it's my favorite Wolf related project. I think the Jack Nicholson and Wolf is a much better movie in my opinion, but I really enjoy the 2010 movie from the remake from Benicio del Toro. I really just am disappointed because the idea of it, like, oh yeah, it's a claustrophobic movie, and like it feels like it has the same story beats, by the way, of the 2010 movie where it's the dad turns into a werewolf and bites the son, and then the son kills the dad, and then his love interest has to kill him, and and it just feels like the same cliche thing, and I'm just like, man, like it just feels like it doesn't even feel like a Wolfman movie because a lot of people that's the biggest complaint I looked at because they usually don't look at reviews because I don't want to mess with my. But I understand. Like after I was like, well, I wonder what the consensus is. Maybe I just don't like this movie. Turns out, no, a lot of people do not like this movie. And I reached out even to a friend of mine, Ryan Kane. I was like, hey, do you like this movie? And he goes, no, it's a piece of shit. And so I was like, you know what? It kind of I can understand that because it just feels like and like there's even some like, where's the Wolfman at? Like the Wolfman doesn't even he's barely in the movie. I don't. That didn't bother me. I don't feel like but I feel like it doesn't really look like a wolf. It just looks like a man who looks like he's in wrong turn. And I just think the design, like Rick Baker's design in the 2010 movie was much better. But the wolf in this design just looks like a man who mutated. Almost like something from the Val Kilmer Island of Dr. Monroe movie rather than the Wolfman. And I just feel like the performances, Julia Gardner, Christopher Abbott, and the little girl are fantastic in the movie. And I even like how you have the childhood friend who's like in the cabin in the woods box, and I was just like, and how like you feel creepy, like you feel unsettled. I like that aspect, how you're unsettled. And then whenever you see the wolf, you're like, oh, that's really where the threat is, not him. Like you think, oh, maybe he's the other wolf in there, and it turns out, no, he's not the threat at all. And then you see him get killed, which I feel like that was kind of rushed, though. I feel like I like this unsettledness, but then I kind of feel like you should have let it play out just a little bit longer. At the beginning of the movie, I was expecting the dad to get killed or disappear, but instead, it's like, okay, the dad, he sees the wolf, and I'm like, oh, okay, now we're in good. All right. Like, you see the wolf, and he sees it in this lens, and it's like, he disappears. I like that aspect of it. I'm like, all right, the building the suspense. I like that. And then when you see, like, it crawling up there, and then, like, the dad's, like, right there, oh, it's going to kill the dad, it's going to kill the dad. And then nothing happens, and I'm just kind of bummed. I was like, that's kind of like a cop out, really, and everything. And also, the dad knows about this, and it's like running like an anti-wolf hunting thing kind of thing. I'm like, okay, come on, really? Like, it could have been later. Like, if it would have been like, hey, the dad, like, later on when the son comes to the cabin after the wolf attacks and he finds out his dad was in all this, it would have been much more impactful. Like, oh, that day he saw the wolf, that day is when, he started hunting it. That would have made it more cooler rather than like, oh, he's always been doing this. And it just kind of really, like, it felt really shallow about it. And also, I feel like I like the cast. The cast, like, especially how the dad's still, even though he's turning, he's trying to protect them and everything. And I like how like they're trying to stay in the basement because the wolf is around. And then of course, whenever like the one thing is I'm like, why are they staying upstairs then? With like the wolf, and stuff like that. Which I do like how they try and take the car. They're trying to get the car, the truck, and everything. And then of course they see the wolf attacks them, and then they just stupidly climb on the greenhouse, which is like a tent basically. And I'm like, that's stupid. But I thought it was like, I understand like where, in the fear of panic where you go. I do think that, the ending, especially like after he kills the dad and everything, and then he becomes the wolf. I like that aspect because, I mean, there's only one way to go. And I thought that was really great. I just feel like also like when he shoots and kills them, I'm like, oh, come on. Like, I was like, it just, I understand that's the only way you can go in the story. But like, I don't know. I was expecting something different. Like, what's the clever? Like, what if she's going to get bit? Oh, she's probably going to get bit. And then they're going to have to fight it out or something, and then, or she's going to become the wolf woman, instead or something. And I'm like, there's got to be the shoe to drop, like in The Invisible Man, how the other shoe drop when she gets a suit on and kills her abusive husband. This one is just like, okay, shoot the wolf, and then they walk out, and then and B-roll footage of them walking away, kind of thing, and it ends, and I'm like, well, that's disappointing, and I'm just like, it just felt like, oh man, like this could have been a great movie, and it just feels like it just doesn't feel like it's scary. Not scary. It just feels like it's just like about a mad dog attacking them, and they're basically trying to defend themselves in this farmhouse cabin, and you're like, okay, like we were even debating on when the year the movie takes place because it just says like 13 or 30 years later, whatever. I'm like, it takes place 13 years later in 2008, and I'm like, they don't have cell phones, like they didn't bring a cell phone to call the police or nothing. Like I understand when he's a kid, but like in '95, but like in 2008, they don't have Motorola's that can call. Like I'm just saying, come on, or Blackberries. I'm just saying, the mom's like a successful business lawyer in New York, and I'm just, and also it doesn't really, you don't really have that emotional connection with the mother daughter. Like it's like always a father daughter, and I was expecting like there to be more emotion there, where the dad doesn't want to kill his daughter because of the wolf. And at first, I was even thinking like this is gonna be like The Shining, isn't it? Because the way when they were driving, and I'm like, oh, this has like Shining nods. Oh, it's gonna be like he's gonna be like Jack Nicholson Shining, but he's turning into a wolf. I'm like, oh, this is even cooler. But then it doesn't even go that way, and I'm just like kind of like it just feels like I would like to have gotten to the cabin first and build up that suspense to where when he does get bit, it pays off better. But instead, it just feels like it rushes to the finish line, and I just disappointed because I wanted something more out of this movie. But although it wasn't a terrible movie, is it still like the best Wolfman movie out there? No. Is it Is it a good remake? I would say it's a disappointing remake. I still think Lee Whannell's a great director. I just feel like he should have probably did the first or the Ryan Gosling pass on it. He should have made that version. But I understand he wants to make this version. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a D. Thank you.